Hello everybody, my name is Shortline614 and welcome to episode 15 of Shortline Space Program, of course our series in Kerbal Space Program where let's just say we do a lot of things. In this episode, the first thing that we're going to be doing this episode is, we're here out at Challenger Station. If you remember last time, we used our Nerva tug to take some very large components out here. But now it needs to go back to Challenger Station, or Columbia Station. It's already at Challenger Station. Columbia Station in low Kerbal orbit, because we have another mission for this really useful tug. So obviously I, go away from Challenger Station and I set us on a course that will get us back to Kerbin in orbit. Of course, we're going to have to do another burn once we're at Kerbin to actually get into a low Kerbin orbit and not this, I guess you could call it a min-miss transfer orbit. I guess it's not really a min-miss transfer orbit because it's not transferring out to anything the second time around. You know what I mean. But, as with all tug missions, or the previous two, I was kind of worried about not having enough Delta V to actually get back into a low Kerbin orbit and go to Challenger or Columbia Station. And, those fears turned out to be, not... They were invalid, of course, because I do end up getting enough fuel to actually come back to the station, which is good. This tug is once again proving that it can do the job assigned for it as long as you don't put too much fuel. As long as you don't put too much weight on the front of it, it can do its job. But, in the future, that won't really have to be a problem, because in the future we will have a refinery and a lander. Heck, that's the next thing that we're launching, and the purpose of this episode, out at that station, so we can just fuel up there and then we can come back, which is going to be very useful for transferring fuel between there and here. I'll probably do a bunch of live streams when doing those mundane tasks like that. But anyways, we are back at Columbia Station, and of course we're docking this to the nuclear fuel module, which I don't think that has enough fuel to actually refuel the Nerva tug in its entirety. So we are going to have to use some fuel from the liquid fuel from the liquid fuel and oxidizer portion of the station, which is of course in those truss segments. My main issue with this is always docking, because the RCS is placed in a configuration where it doesn't make the easiest to dock. But I do manage to go ahead and dock this back, and that is okay. That's fine. There we go. And now, back at the Kerbal Space Center, they've been preparing another launch. They've been preparing this this Potomac 1-4 launch vehicle, 1 core 4 boosters, and on top of that is the first refinery module for Challenger Station and the first lander. And my goal right now, what I'm planning to do, is I'm planning to send this up, obviously using the Nerva tug, and then we're going to test this out at Minmus, and then when we go to launch the second one, we're going to make a whole bunch of changes, based off the data from the first one, which is rather nice. On a side note, I quite like those thoroughbred boosters, because they provide a lot of thrust and they provide a lot of gimbal. Honestly, when they came out with a lot of the the more boosters update, I was kind of like, oh, I'm not going to use these, but they're actually really useful for, say if you're in career mode and you need a low-cost launch vehicle. Of course, they proposed, Omega was proposed to use mostly solid rocket boosters, but after they lost the national security launch contract, they, or whatever it was called, they canceled it, which is sad, because I live not too far from where, Cygnus and all those other craft, Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems craft are developed, so I need to really go out and see a launch from Wallops one of these days. Anyways, you can now see our lander, which is of course that big thing squished between the upper stage and the refinery module. That took a bit to develop. I actually developed that in a separate test save. And of course, there's the Refinery module, and eventually we're going to have 2 of these out at Challenger Station. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm actually, because I did this off screen. I cut out the whole refueling of, well, I'm going to be cutting out the refueling of the Nerva tug. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be placing the payload. I'm not going to be docking it to Challenger Station. I'm going to be putting it next to the station. And then I'm going to take this Potomac upper stage tug, which we really have no use for. We have other tugs which can do the same job. But that has a lot of fuel left over that we can actually use to refuel the station, which is rather nice. So I just go ahead and get this thing close to the station. And I'm actually going to be docking this onto the back of the Nerva tug. I was hoping that would make refueling easier, which it actually ended up... It did make it easier because with this one it didn't have the weird refueling glitch where sometimes it won't let you refuel certain tanks from other tanks, which please I guess squad, or I guess take 2 now, or it's been take 2 for the past few years. Please, I know you're working hard on Kerbal Space Program 2. It looks amazing. I can't wait to play, but please fix that. Fix that bug in the KSP1. Because it's really annoying when you have to do a lot of in-space refueling like I do. And anyways, I did all the refueling off-screen because, refueling is kind of boring and it takes a while, and because of the aforementioned bug or glitch or whatever. Well, I guess it's just a bug, it's not a glitch, but... I go ahead and I use the remaining mod repellent to deorbit this thing. This thing didn't actually have enough mod repellent to fully deorbit, so what I ended up doing is I just ended up going to the tracking station and pressing the delete button. Which is all fine and good. You can see our payload over there just kind of floating near the station. And this thing has go ahead and deorbit. I know it's been announced recently that the Dynetics lander for the Human Landing System contract is going to be using a Vulcan Centaur to refuel in space, which, yeah, that adds mission complexity. But I like, if you haven't noticed, I quite like the idea of fuel depots in space. That's going to be very, very important going forward. But anyways, we undock the tug, and trying to get it over to the payload, I almost hit the solar panel on the station, but then a quick maneuver from me ends up, causing it not to do that. And, obviously I fly over, and as I said, rendezvous is kind of getting a bit boring, so I cut out most of the, actually me going over and rendezvousing, and I ended up using the payload. I ended up docking the payload itself to the lander. Of course, that tug has a docking port on the forward and back, so we can push stuff, but we could also pull stuff if we really wanted to. Well, now it is time for our trans-Minmus injection, or try and actually go out and pushing this thing out to Minmus. And we activate those engines, and for the 3rd time, the Nerva tug is pushing a very heavy payload out to Minmus. Because, the ore tanks are not full, but of course the orange fuel tanks in the lander, those are full, but they're locked, so the tug can't draw fuel from them, which is nice. But the apoapsis continues to rise. Most of the Delta V is just initially getting out of Kerbin's orbit. Later on, you don't really need a whole lot to actually accelerate out to Minmus. You get a brief Mun encounter, but of course we're not going to the Mun, we're going to Minmus. And I don't actually get an encounter, so we're going to have to make a mid-course correction to actually get this thing out to Minmus. And then we're flying away from Kerbin. It will fade into the background. Of course, it's always going to be there, just like the sun, how it's always going to be there. Because, we're operating in the Kerbin-Mun-Minmus system. We're not doing anything interplanetary, at least not yet. And, I do my mid-course correction, and we get an encounter with Minmus. And then, of course, we get into Minmus's gravity well, its sphere of influence, and then we... well, I start to burn to actually get into a preliminary Minmus orbit. I could have done this at my periapsis, but for some reason I just didn't. As I said, I recorded this thing like 2 weeks ago, so trying to recall memories from 2 weeks ago is rather hard. But as you can see, I kind of get this weird encounter where if I didn't actually fully circularize, I would then proceed to get another Minmus encounter. That would actually be rather nice if we were in like career mode and we're sending like a flyby probe or something, but of course, we're not here to fly by Minmus, we're here to orbit it, and we're here to assemble a station. Which is, we're here to assemble a station, which is rather nice. Excuse me for my yawn. Whenever I record, I always feel my body's like, yes, please, yawn. I am recording this at like 11:30 in the morning after I stayed up late for, let's just say undisclosed reasons. Not because I wanted to, though, because I was kind of forced to. But, of course, we're, of course, in a preliminary Minmus orbit, and then I get ourselves into a, we're going to burn to get ourselves into into the proper Minmus orbit. On retrospect, I'm pretty sure I put everything in a retrograde orbit, which, yeah, I wouldn't have to make these burns. I might correct that sometime in the future, but it doesn't really matter for stuff like the relays, but for the station, yeah, that's kind of annoying. I might do that in the future, but, who knows. I've been kind of busy with the whole online school thing, so yeah, there's been less content overall for me over the past couple weeks, but hopefully that will change as I kind of get settled into everything. Anyways, we do get an encounter with with Challenger Station, and well, we have three very let's just say very heavy craft that all need to go to certain destinations. One is just the lander doesn't need to dock to the station, at least not yet. We can just put it into a place that's near the station, but the refueling module and the tug, they both need to dock. So I switch to the station, and I take out our little orbital construction vehicle. OCV, I guess, or Orbital Tug, Orbital Construction Vehicle. I've called this thing many names. And we are going to dock up to the refueling module, and we're going to put it on its place in the station. Of course, eventually we're going to have two of these, but for now, we're only just going to have one. While we, test out all the designs, what do we need? Do we need more fuel for the, do we need more fuel? Do we need less fuel for the lander? What about the amount of, power? Do we need to send up more power? What about, the radiators? I've never really done something like this before, so this is a whole bunch of questions, that I need to answer, and we will be getting answers to in this episode. And, of course, we'll go back and we'll make changes to the design. And the second refinery module and the second lander, we will modify them based off of our experience, and they'll be even better than the last, making my technology teacher very proud with the engineering design process. Hey, you use the things that you learn in school. Hope some of them at least. Also, this thing, if you've noticed, this thing has lights, which is good because if you've watched me in the past, I forget to put lights on my space stations. Which is all fine and good. But we go ahead and we end up docking this to the station up here. And, of course, Kerbal Space Program docking is like magnets, so you don't really have to get it exactly precise like real life. And we deploy the radiators. And, well, we go ahead and we go ahead and we reposition the tug, because this isn't really going to be used for until we send up our next module, which, as I said, should be the second incarnation of that refinery module. And for some reason I had a bit of trouble actually getting this orientated the proper way to actually be docked. for some reason I went back to the Space Center. I have no idea why. Well, there was a cut before that, so I guess it's all fine and good. But anyway, just going ahead and renaming the craft. Of course, we need to redock our Nerva tug to the. For now, it's going to be docking to the bottom of the station. I'm going to send up another nuclear fuel module, or Nerva tug refueling module, up here. That's going to be going at the bottom, and then I'll actually put the cruise segment on one of the sides, because I'm basing this station somewhat off of the power tower station ideas in the 1970s or 80s. Of course, those stations were really meant to be orbital shipyards, just kind of like my stations. I don't really do a whole lot of science on here. That was a big reason why the space station took so long to be built. There was a constant, especially in the 80s, there was a constant debate whether or not it should be an orbital shipyard sort of thing, which is what I probably would have done, or a scientific laboratory. The orbital shipyard was deemed too expensive, so they ended up going with the laboratory, and of course, eventually our space station program was merged with the Russian one, which resulted in the International Space Station, which is rather nice. I do hope someone like SpaceX or ends up building an orbital shipyard eventually, because that would really be cool. I find the idea of orbital shipyards just really, really nice, because all you would need to do is you wouldn't need to bring up all your components from Earth. You would just need to bring up the materials to build the craft, and you could build them in space. Which would really be useful, because then you wouldn't have to say, oh, is my payload going to hold up in gravity and whatnot, the gravity on the planet, because it would never need to go back down to the planet. But anyways, our lander, we are going to test land this. We're going to test this out, and of course we're going to land it in an area where I know there's a bunch of ore, which is, I think I call this place the Ice Cream Flats, because Minmus is a giant ball of mint ice cream. And, well, I try and land this close to where we landed our initial Minmus Express mission for this, or at least this segment of Minmus Express. And, well, this thing does have enough Delta V to actually land, which is pretty nice. Will it have enough Delta V to actually get back into orbit? Because you have to remember, that ore tank is empty, and ore tank is actually rather heavy. One neat feature about this craft is underneath the radiators in those, it's powered by RTGs, right? Because it needs to be able to mine fuel during the long Minmus nights. And, well, I actually imported a little nuclear symbol flag into the game and actually put them on the sides, so that's rather fun. As I said, if anybody wants any of these craft, you can just ask. I'll upload that on Kerbal X if you really want me to. Anyways, this thing is indeed landed, and I switch back to those just to check on them. And we start to deploy our drills, and we start to mine our ore. And, well, everything is going well. I start to set the time warp. We're going to watch that ore tank fill up. And I think it took about 8 days or so, or 9 days, or 10 days to actually fill this up. So I want to eventually have 2 of these, and I'd land both of them at once, and they would both come back up to the plant, the station, and they would use their own individual refineries to refine into fuel. So every 8 to 10 days, I would need to, just like now, I would need to, do all this stuff. But anyways, we have filled up on ore. As you can see, we only have around 600 Delta V to actually get into orbit. And rendezvous and dock, which I was actually kind of afraid that I wouldn't have enough Delta V to actually do it. But, as you can see, I landed in an area that wasn't equatorial. So in the future, I might want to land in an area that's more. I landed in an area that wasn't equatorial because I wanted to land close to the probes, but that isn't. I don't really need to, because that entire valley area, that entire lowlands area has a lot of ore, so I could land on the equator and still have enough ore. But it is a good test that we have the ability to land in places that aren't exactly on the equator. So you got to look at the bright side of your mistakes. But I do end up getting enough Delta V. I do have enough Delta V to actually get a encounter, which is rather nice, because, well, Minmus, I've said this a bunch of times before, it's stating the obvious at this point, but you don't need as much Delta V to do stuff around Minmus than the Kerbin or the Mun, because Minmus is rather small. Huh. But it has a lot of resources, which is why we're coming here to get that sweet ore, which we can convert into fuel. But anyways, we come back to the station, and I go ahead and I dock this to the module. Slowly, this thing, I had to place the RCS in a rather strange way to actually, I had to place the RCS, 2 on the sides, 1 on the front, or 2 on the front. Well, you see how it's placed, which initially I thought that would make it harder to dock, but it turned out to be just fine in the end. It's balanced. Balanced as I could make it, with still being functional. Anyways, well, we have this thing docked, and we have 8,000, or 6,000, we have a bunch of ore. We have a bunch of ore, which we will now be able to refine into, well, we're going to refine into liquid fuel for the Nerva tug, right? So, it took a while for me to actually figure out how this worked, so to say. And, well, in the end, I do end up figuring out how it works, which is rather nice. I had to end up deploying those radiators because the radiators on the refinery module weren't actually enough to my thermal efficiency continued to drop, which wasn't so good because you want your thermal efficiency to be 100 so you could refine ore quickly. So that's another thing we need to do. The next one has to have larger radiators, and I might send up a little docking arrangement which will attach onto this, which will just be comprised of maybe like a probe core and more radiators. And, well, this does take a little while, but we're eventually going to have 2 of these up here, so that's going to be rather nice. And, well, right now, we're just kind of monitoring how exactly it would work. Writing down notes and whatnot to, note to self, do this next time. The lander, though, did perform rather well, which is rather nice. Maybe we could have a larger lander in the future, but who knows? Who really knows? The refinery does kind of take a while, but my next Shortline Space Program thing will probably be a stream where I'll just go back and forth with the lander trying to, bring up enough ore to refuel that nuclear tug. Because remember, I actually had to refine all the ore for the fuel for the lander first, and then the tug. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that stuff that YouTubers tell you to do. Also, I guess if you're also on BitChute, do the same. I do live streams of Kerbal Space Program and Team Fortress 2 and other games in the future. I'm hoping to do a Hearts of Iron live stream soon. And join the Discord if you want to talk to me for whatever reason. And as I said before, if you want any of these craft, just tell me and just join the Discord, tell me, and I'll put the link up on Kerbal X, which is rather nice. And, well, I'll see y'all in, so yeah, mission success so far. There's some things that we can change, but, thank you all for watching, and, I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.